All right. So next up, we're going to review New Mutants, and that will be handled by Vaughn.
All right. So I guess right up front, the big elephant in the room to address is obviously all the film's delays, to which for me like has been a grueling process because since the word of this film even got out, I've been like extraordinarily hyped for it. Like something about a horror film but with X-Men just had me sold, and I was so eager to see it. And yeah, so since day one, I've been waiting for this movie. And in fact, when I went to the screening, I was honestly like so stunned, and I told like the people I was with, like we had to see it at this time, just in case it got delayed again.
Yeah. I'm surprised it didn't get further delayed because of everything going on.
I know,
but
but overall though, what's funny about this though is that, like I said, this has usually been my most anticipated film every year since it was announced. But I also had like the highest low expectations, if that makes sense.
Right.
Because when I heard that a horror film, like an X-Men horror film, was going to be made, it was like, okay, how scary is this going to be? Like, you know, is it just going to be kind of scary with superheroes and all that? So, you know, I didn't have the highest expectations, but I was still really hyped, if that makes any sense at all. But overall, now that I finally got to see it, I have to say, I really enjoyed this film.
Okay.
I honestly had such a blast with it. The biggest thing that comes off to mind is it reminded me of both The Breakfast Club and the third Nightmare on Elm Street combined.
Okay.
Yeah. It's all set in a creepy asylum. You're getting all these like teen stories. Everyone's likable. You're really loving this bond that's growing through the whole group. But it's also like dealing with freaky images and giant monsters attacking them, and they have to like work together to fight them off. But which actually, I'm happy to announce too that every now and then there actually was a scene that would genuinely get under my skin and creep me out. For example, there's one static shot when they introduce one creature in particular that honestly really did bother me. But with that in mind too, just going off the list I have here, one nice thing is like the story is actually good as well, and in fact there's a queer romance between the main character and Rainn Wolfsbane that is genuinely, I normally groan at these romances in these superhero films, but this one actually like was charming and like very natural to see, and it was just nice to see how it progressed throughout. On top of that, I think the cast who plays the main mutants, there's one actor in particular though that isn't as great, but for the most part, everyone who's like a major star in this film is filled the role up perfectly for me as a New Mutants fan. Especially Anya Taylor-Joy, she just steals the show. But I was actually impressed with I'm blanking on his name, but the guy from Stranger Things.
Charlie Heaton.
Charlie Heaton, yes. He was like a perfect embodiment of like how I always imagined Cannonball when I read the comics, and I was, especially since I was expecting him to not even try, it really surprised me. On top of that, most of the effects were actually really impressive looking. Every now and then it wouldn't be like top notch, but like for example the demon bear, you get some close-up shots of that thing and it's actually like really cool and detailed. So again, this is like a big enjoyment for me. This is probably going to become a little bit of a Halloween tradition, but it's not perfect. I do have dislikes. For example, a lot of the every now and then the film is edited weird. For example, there in the trailer there's a shot with that door decaying. That really just comes out of nowhere, and it's like that it could have used some more build-up if it was going to be creepy. Along with that, they do hint at certain interesting like character traits that I felt could have been explored more. For example, as I mentioned, like Rainn, is in this lesbian relationship, and yet she's also extremely Catholic. And I felt you could have dug into that a little bit more, like really developed her for that. And on top of that, there's one character that they hint with childhood trauma. I don't really want to spoil it, but it kind of goes away as the film progresses. And along with that, the villain, while she is great, like played the main bad guy who's the doctor, she really is just the typical evil doctor, kind of like a even more evil Nurse Ratched, if that makes sense. And yeah, like they hint at more things with her, but once again, it's never really played out fully. Like she always hints at a superior, and nothing really goes from there. And on top of that, my one little nitpick is the actor that plays Danny's father is awful.
Okay.
He is so stone-faced and boring, and it's so good that he's only in it for like 5 minutes. But overall, as someone who was extremely hyped for this film, I felt it really lived up to it at least, and I had a blast watching it. So yeah, that's my.
I'm so happy this is good, because I had an X-Men movie theory. So every other movie is great usually in the X-Men theory, and I think this goes back to like when they first were dropping like the original movies that introduced why can't I remember his name right now? Wolverine. Hugh Jackman. Yeah.
Are you talking the original trilogy?
Yeah,
or...
like every other movie is solid, at least, and this works with the theory.
Yeah,
because the last movie they dropped, Dark Phoenix, terrible, shitty.
Yeah, this is certainly not on that level.
Dude, you're giving me PTSD flashbacks just bringing up Dark Phoenix.
But before that, we got Logan, so you know. I think my theory stands the test of time, and I'm happy about that because I was really looking forward to this movie.
Yeah, I think it's super solid, and like I said, there were a few scenes that genuinely creeped me out. Okay. So, like, it pays off as a horror film as well.
Now, my next question for the folks at home: was this worth risking your life?
I'm gonna have to agree with the previous speaker. No film is gonna be worth risking your life. But if you can, I would recommend seeing this in the theater. I especially one shot in particular with the demon bear. It wouldn't have had the effect that it did in watching it in the theaters if I watched it at home. Okay. So if you can, be safe. Obviously.
How was the horror? Was it... Because, we often criticize horror movies for relying too much on jump scares and just looking creepy. Was the suspense there? Mm-hmm. Did you feel, like, tension and stuff?
Yeah. For example, the scariest scene to me is just a static shot, and you just see this creature walk onto the screen slowly, and it's very, like, unnerving how it looks. It's very in the uncanny valley. Okay. I'd hate to give away what it is, but you do see it. You do see what it is in the trailer. But on top of that, the coal mining scene was really eerie. I can't really think of a lot of jump scares aside from when the smiley guy falls from the ceiling. Oh, and the one particular demon bear scene. But like I said, you need to see that in theaters if you can.
So you said you're a fan of the comics. So you've read the New Mutants comics before. Like majority of them.
Yes.
So who are the main mutants in this one, if you can say?
Okay, so in the film, this one it has Cannonball, Sunspot. I only call her Danny, but I believe her name is Mirage. Okay. I think I'm blanking. I usually just call her Danny Moonstar, and Wolfsbane, and I mentioned, and of course Magic, my favorite member of the team. But those are the ones. They left out Magma, Shauna, and Warlock obviously doesn't appear in this film.
In the comics, have they ever done a horror type theme with the New Mutants before?
Yeah, for example, this is actually heavily inspired by an actual Demon Bear arc. And for me, when I read that, I genuinely thought it was like a really kind of creepy comic. It's all set in a hospital instead of an asylum, but it's very unnerving. And it also introduced Legion, the guy who got his own show, and his arc when he first showed up is like really like crazy and eerie. So I describe that as a horror comic as well.
Okay. I would another question I wanted to ask. So could you tell, the fact that this film has been delayed? Like, could you tell that, like, during the editing of it? Some characters, do they, hair looks different, or is it like a fan four stick type situation where wigs are just completely all messed up and you can just tell that right in the middle of the movie? Is there anything like that? Could you tell like this?
No,
Okay.
Luckily. From what I understand, this is actually the original cut of the film. Like, they never really did do the reshoots. And either way, if they did, I couldn't tell because everyone looks the same age throughout the whole thing. There's no bad wigs. If anything, Anya Taylor-Joy picked some interesting hairstyles, but it looks natural.
Yeah.
So, she literally has devil horns one scene.
Yeah, I'm looking at the trailers for it here, and yeah, I mean, her character, really good design, really kind of badass scenes. The effects of the movie, do they look pretty good? Like, do they look cheap at all, or low budget, or are they pretty good?
Every now and then there was one that didn't look top notch. Like, you could tell this was like they were trying something with this, so they went a little cheap. But like I said, there are a lot of effects though that are really cool looking. The biggest one obviously is Magic's powers, and also the demon bear were like actually really cool looking.
Okay.
In fact, like the demon bear had individual hair strands in its fur.
Oh, that's pretty nice. Okay.
So yeah, it's really impressive.
So you already said that this is better than Apocalypse. It's better than Phoenix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. The only time I saw X-Men 3 was when I was a kid, and I can honestly remember getting really bored at times. And I know if I saw this as a kid, I'd probably love the entire thing. And I never really was bored throughout this. Like, this movie is 97 minutes long and uses every single second of it.
Okay.
You good?
Sorry. Yeah, I have a quick question. So this was part of Fox's big experimental phase with the X-Men universe before the Disney buyout. Without giving away spoilers, like, how much of this ties into the other X-Men movies? As much
Very
as you can.
little.
Okay, so this is more or less standalone.
Yeah, pretty much. If anything, stock footage from Logan appears in this film.
Huh. Okay.
For a split second. But yeah, for the most part, like, for example, Magic, she is the brother of Colossus, and it's never brought up that she even has a brother.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's pretty on its own. So you could go in not even knowing it's an X-Men film. If anything, they just mention like, oh yeah, we could probably grow up to be X-Men if we wanted to. So, yeah, they're well known, but just standalone.
So are you genuinely a fan of the X-Men comics? Like, not just New Mutants, but overall X-Men.
Oh yeah, definitely. If anything, I do kind of prefer New Mutants comics more, but yeah, I went to go see almost every X-Men movie. Like, I love all the comics, or at least most of the comics I've read.
Okay.
So.
I guess this leads into my final question for you. Now with Disney, now that they've acquired Fox and now they have control of the X-Men brand, what do you mostly want to see from them that you haven't gotten, as of yet?
That's interesting. I really want to see a Mojo World movie.
Mojo World. Okay.
Yeah, so Mojo World, Mojo is this fat alien that's just a TV producer, but what he does is he takes over worlds and makes them into giant reality shows and, like, tortures them like that.
Okay. Is that what we're in right now on, like, 2020 Earth? Is that what's happening right now?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Like,
He's been the main villain all along.
Like, if anything, if I've ever thought about that, if anything too, I would love to see Excalibur be introduced, but who knows when that would happen.
I know I keep saying final question. This is seriously my last question. So, like with movies that Fox did, and they've had some ups, they've had some downs. Do you think that like something like New Mutants, Logan, Deadpool would have ever been done if it had been acquired by Disney prior, like maybe 10 years ago?
I really don't think so. I hate to be negative like that, but I don't see Disney taking weird leaps like this. Especially like Kevin Feige has talked numerous times before how he's not really interested in doing R-rated superheroes, and we recently saw how Scott Derrickson left Doctor Strange 2, even though he was like super excited about it being the first Marvel horror film. So I think it was a really good thing that it didn't happen 10 years ago, and I'm a little bit worried about how the X-Men franchise is going to be handled from now on.
Because Kevin Feige's version of horror is very campy and Spielbergy.
Yeah, which was Sam Raimi. That sounds awesome, but like I've listened to Scott Derrickson in interviews before where he's very like, yeah, it's my road or like nothing, you know what I mean? And so to hear that he left, it was like, okay, like we're not gonna get another New Mutants like this or something like that, you know?
We're probably not gonna get like an auteur to come in and actually handle everything.
Oh yeah.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for reviewing this for me. Coming on.
Oh yeah, no problem. If anything, do you guys want to hear real quick? Do you guys want to hear what the actual theater experience was like for me?
Please.
Yep.
Please. Yes, please.
Yeah, I know. I hinted at that before, and I'd hate to let it go by. So, to be safe, I actually have a small like theater chain in my town, and normally it's like relatively small and empty, like it really gets packed on the weekends. And so I figured like to be safe and see this movie, I'm gonna go on their Thursday showing. Just my luck, it's one of their busiest nights ever, and the theater was almost filled up. Luckily everyone understood like separate, everyone had a good chunk of chairs between each other. But they were a really awful crowd at first. For example, I got stuck between two very old rednecks who would speak out loud every now and then, especially during the lesbian scenes. Oh yeah, like spoilers. They kiss, and I heard them like, "Oh my god!" On top of that, behind them was a dude who looked exactly like Harvey Weinstein and was just on his phone the entire time and had it on the brightest like setting on his phone to the point that it was almost like a spotlight was shining in his face.
Wow.
And on top of that, just to add things, like make things worse, the projector was screwing up for the first 10 minutes. The sound was off to where all the sound effects were super crisp clear, but the actual vocals were muffled to the point that there's a scene where someone is listening to headphones and you can hear that clearer than what the people are talking about.
Wow.
They just weren't prepared.
And to make... Oh, what?
Oh, my bad.
But one more thing, too. The camera kept zooming... The projection kept zooming in and zooming out on the wall. And at one point even started moving around like those DVD screensavers.
Damn.
I was losing my mind. I've been waiting for this movie 3 years, and this happened.
They must have got the bootleg.
Yeah.
I know, right? Yeah.
Did you see?
Your theater just got a really bad
Yeah,
bootleg.
I was about to say. Did you see like somebody walk through the screen?
I'm amazed we didn't. Like I'm amazed we didn't get like a weird Russian website ad at the bottom or something.
Were there like Czechoslovakian subtitles at the bottom of the screen during it?
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm amazed that all didn't happen, but it was bizarre to say the least. But it luckily cleared up, and I was able to fully enjoy the film.
Nice.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm happy that it wasn't nothing like, oh, it was just people not wanting to wear masks and then fighting and all that mess.
Well, that fight didn't break out because no one did wear
Oh,
masks.
no.
But, we don't really force that around here when you get into the theater.
Oh, okay.
Welcome to America, folks.
Yeah, when you walk around, you have to wear a mask, but when you get into your seat, that comes off completely.
Rest in peace.
And every time, believe me, a lot of people cough.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
And a cold sweat would always happen. I'm like, oh no, I'm
Yeah.
gonna die.
That's like my biggest fear. Not just being surrounded by somebody that's coughing, but also because I have allergy coughs from time to time. If I'm in a crowd and I'm coughing, like,
Oh, dude.
and I can't blame you for looking at me crazy, because you should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had that happen way too many times at work. Even though I have my mask on and I just have like an allergy cough, and I just instantly feel a bunch of eyes glaring at me. It's like, get out, leper!
You have a final rating for it at all you want to give, or?
Yeah, I've been debating about it because obviously, like, I'm really glowing about it. But I think I would settle on a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Just out of its few problems, but overall, I greatly enjoyed it. So yeah, it's probably a 7 out of 10.
Okay. All right. That's
Sweet.
solid review. All right,
I
solid
can't
score.
wait for this to get on streaming platforms.
Yep. Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Or if you can, go to my janky theater.
You can watch the bootleg.
Yeah, watch it flying around the screen, you know. Have them projected on the ceiling.
I was just gonna bootleg it, but apparently I just need to go to your theater.
Yeah, right.
If you always want to check us out, we are on all the social medias, Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff. You can always check us out. To all you wonderful people out there listening to this, hope you have a wonderful day, and don't forget to always stay tuned.